Shalom, people. This is Brother Laos coming at you with another video. I want to thank you for tuning in to my channel today. As you come in, please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe. And also share these videos with others that you know. We want to talk about something that I think is very important for us to understand in this age of Trumpism, where a lot of our black people are seeking to leave from this country and go to other places because of the great fear and consternation that has been stirred up amongst us by our political elite and entertainers and all those that were hoping that Kamala Harris and the Democrats would have continued on with an extension of the Obama ideology, in the sense of you had Joe Biden, that was Obama's vice president that, became president, but also Kamala Harris, which has been being tutored by Obama and was vice president to Biden, would continue on the legacy of the Obamas, and it didn't happen. So now we see what's going on with Donald Trump is all the things that happened while he was in office, and when he got out, when they tried to put him in jail. Now that he's back, now we see this great push by him to repay the favor by locking up or making the Democrats that were on his tail during the Biden presidency, to put them on a run. So, of course, a lot of us that were down here on grassroots level when all this was playing out, did some of these things have an effect on us with both presidencies? Of course, but not to the level that is going to be with the cronies that were with Biden in his administration, of what Trump is trying to do, and somewhat is achieving a lot of it, to get them to be fearful that they're gonna lose their status, or that they could be locked up. So of course this trickles down upon us, and so now you see a lot of black people, a lot of Hebrew people are trying to leave out of this country and go to other places. Now, what we're going to talk about is not everywhere. What we want to narrow it down to, we want to narrow it down to the continent of Africa, which I think is very important for us to understand what's going on. This also is going to be talking about those of you that watch this video that believe that we are the people, that we are the descendants of the 12 tribes of Jacob or Jacob, that were brought over here during the transatlantic slave trade. In particular, some believe that most of the people that came over here that were of the tribes were of Judah. That's not important for the discussion that we have, but what it does say is that we were brought over here mainly out of the continent of Africa, from different places, being pulled against our will, but also that there had to be internal forces that were inside of the continent, in the places that we had been scattered and dispersed after our people were kicked out of the Holy Land by the Most High because of our denial of His Son Yeshua. When Yeshua cried over Jerusalem and said, "Hey, you are left undone. Your house is left unto you undone." And we know what the Romans did in 70 A.D. when they leveled Jerusalem. And then subsequently after that, and for many years, people that were in Judah were being pushed or scattered into different points of the earth, in particular the ones that were running into Africa to escape Rome, and how over time a lot of them ended up several thousand years later scattered throughout East, Central, West, and South Africa. But we want to talk about those that were caught up in the transatlantic slave trade in West Africa and were being shipped into the Western Hemisphere, South America, Caribbean, Central America, North America. We want to talk about that. We want to talk about how those descendants, of which I am one, are now going back into the places that we were captured and brought to this place. Now we look at the continent because we have DNA and we can kind of look back at some of the places that we have gone, and we've seen the yearly return where Ghana and subsequently some other countries invited African Americans back, and also during the CV-19, how some people fled America because they didn't want to be locked down. They fled into Africa, not a lot, but enough. And then how we see how the continent in the last some years has been on the rise, and we look at it, not just those that believe that we are the people, that we are Hebrews, but just the rank and file African American look at it as a place that, hey, we got to retrace our steps. We got to go back to where we actually started from, and how we see that exciting things seem to be happening on the continent right now, especially with Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, which I talked about that in one of my videos. Go check it out. When I talked about Ibrahim Traore and all those different things, how I stated that I do not believe that the majority of the tribes that are left on the continent are descendants of Jacob. I don't believe that. I definitely don't believe that, especially in West Africa, that the majority of the people that are the tribes that are there are our people. I don't believe that, and I stated that with that video where I stated that I believe again that a lot of the House of Peoples that are there in Burkina Faso in particular, when we're talking about Ibrahim Traore and how they're doing great things, we're not descendant of those people. We are not. So that although I am happy for them, I can't be happy with them. And what do I mean by that? I'm happy about what Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are doing, kicking the Europeans out. I'm glad. I'm glad to see that their people are prospering and all these things. I'm glad to see that. It's no doubt about it. I'm glad to see what's going on with the people of Tanzania. I'm glad to see what's going on with the people of Ghana, where they're finding hidden stashes of cash and gold that people were trying to ship out the country, and they've been able to confiscate that. I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see that the Sahel nations are trying to come together in a confederation called the AES to be able to fight against the Western-backed terrorists that were introduced into sub-Saharan Africa, as the West calls it, because of the thing that happened in 2011 with Obama and the NATO destabilizing Northern Africa by overthrowing Gaddafi, with bombing and introducing these terrorist cells that came into Libya, and now are trying to seep down into the sub-Saharan African nations, Nigeria, Mali, the places I just mentioned in the Sahel. I'm happy to see them fighting back and winning battles. I'm happy to see them configuring themselves to maximize their peoples and all that. But what I understand is because, for one, we were pushed out of that because there definitely was something different about us, that when the Europeans first came, that they would give us up to them. That going back, these people are some of the same descendants of those people that facilitated the slave trade. And I'm not trying to believe that if situations might change themselves, that we would be looked in a particular way that is not compatible again, because apparently it was certain things, customs and stuff that we were doing that was not compatible with them. So understanding that for sure now that we have been here in the West hundreds and hundreds of years and have conformed to the ways of Babylon, that going back over there in the mindset and the thing that we are in will not again be compatible with what they're trying to do. It's the same adage that the best way for you to lose a friend is for him to come stay with you. Understand what I'm saying? I'm happy with what they're doing, but I understand that because my mindset, which we are working on that, because the book of Revelations told us to come out from among her. But we got to come out first mentally. We got to first come out spiritually of this Babylonian mindset. Not that some of the African nations themselves might not have been touched by Babylon, but we definitely have been affected by this. And I'm concerned that as we see our people trying to scatter out of America, because first they're equating what they see going on TV with some of these our political leaders, some of our movie stars and all those that have the connects, and some of them equating that's going to maybe affect them. And although I believe there was a shift that's going on in the earth anyway, with the rise of AI, with the rise of globalism, that there was a shift coming, even if Donald Trump had not gotten to office, but that now it is even more heightened by the talking heads amongst us, and it's causing great fear and consternation and causing a lot of our people to make our unwise moves. It's the same thing that you've seen with COVID. Well, some of our people, because me and my wife used to, follow some of the channels, because to be honest, When things was really getting bad, I had one time thought about, you know what, I'm going to try to retire early out of my job, and we're going to try to see if we can take our funds, take our money, sell what we got here, and move to Tanzania, find a piece of land. We was really thinking about that. But then years later, you see how so many people, some that came during the CV-19 and some that came after, how when a lot of those moved over there was no compatibility with that, what they were doing. They didn't fit in, and how a lot have left. Some have stayed in Africa, but a lot came back to the United States. But I'm seeing that same move that's going on with some people here in America. Now, it's not to say everybody's trying to move to the continent, but you do see where a lot are at least saying, I want to have a property there. And if you want to do that, I don't think that would be unwise, but I'm saying just to pick up and just cut ties all together and say, hey man, I got to get out of here. In my spirit, I'm not saying that I'm hearing from Yah that this is what he's telling me. I'm just looking at it with my eyes of deduction, my eyes of having lived this life for a long time. I'm seeing how a lot of people are being moved by fear. They're not looking at the financial situation, that if you are leaving this nation as an American, but you tying your finances back to this nation, but then you want to wholesale leave America, what's going to happen as America's wealth and all that stuff slowly declines, which your livelihood, your pension or whatever is tied to that, what's going to happen to you in that nation now, especially those that's not going to be friendly with America because of what Donald Trump is doing? What's going to happen? What do you think the mindsets of some of those people in those African nations that you're in? First of all, if you would go over there and say, hey, I'm over the 12 tribes, one day, y'all going to be doing this with us and all this other. First of all, if you would not use your common sense and go over there and say something like that, but also if the fact that you just an American, that these people are going to look at you and say, I'm not trying to be hearing all that. I'm not trying to have you talking that kind of way in my nation. You are a guest in my nation, and that they're gonna quickly show you the door. It's been several instances that we have been following certain ones that moved over there and seemed like, oh yeah, they got the formula, they got the right formula, and then seemingly out of nowhere, some of these African nations would rise up and change the criteria and say, oh no, you got to have this, that, and another. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You can't protest in their country if they change their tax. Think about the group in Ghana. Now I understand I'm not in full support of what everyone that's going over there is doing, but some are going over there and trying to be sincere. But I'm thinking about that one group that apparently had purchased the land, and I made a video about that too, how I believe that if the land laws or the way that the Bible said, and that some of those people are tied to that you will never, quote unquote, be owning anybody's land over there forever, and that any given time that African nation, and in particular those chiefs, can rise up and just take that land. Why do you think Burkina Faso itself created a law where the government owns all the land now, right? Now, many are saying, and I'm in agreement with it, that was a wise move. They're not going to take ancestral tracts away per se, But what they're saying is because there are so many land disputes amongst the people, even without Westerners coming over there, that they want to be able to quickly and swiftly deal with those disputes by looking at facts and all that, and also looking at what use is being used by the land. Since they pretty much have been caught up by the West, they want to maximize the use of their land. And even those companies over there that have what they call mining rights, now that's gone. If the nation wants to move and tell some of them foreign investors, they can tell them this land is not, you quote unquote might have quote unquote leased it from a tribe, or leased it from a village or somebody like that. But we are now the overall owners of it, and we're gonna make sure, first of all, that you don't make no environmental damage that you will not fix before you leave, and also misuse of the land, not giving the right amount of taxes, all that. You're gonna be answerable to us, and not to a chief, and not to a village that you can pay off. And this is a wise move, but that goes back to, what if there were ones of us that's saying right now, I want to move to Burkina Faso, and you quote unquote get land. What's to say that they can't come in there and do the same thing, the difference as we have here in America with eminent domain, and say, hey, look, we know this is farmland you got, but because of our situation, we need that land because there is a certain mineral or something under that, and by that, and I would not believe that the Burkina Faso would not maybe come in there and reimburse whatever, but I'm not sure of that. But that is not just them, but it's any African nation where you're gonna go in and you're gonna purchase anything, that if they are trying to make their nations rise up, and that you come in there and you say, I want to be part of that, but ultimately you are still the red-headed stepchild, and the overall benefit of the nation and of the original peoples that are there is going to trump any good that you say, well, I'm coming here, I'm bringing jobs and different things like that. But overall, you can't blame these nations for saying, you know what, at the end of the day, our people got to come out on top. We can't come out. And that's one of the things I think that we were seeing with stuff that was going on in Tanzania, that I think and rightfully so, they had the thing that if you wanted to open up any kind of business, anything, you had to have a Tanzanian partner and stuff. And so, it's just to say, especially if you know that you believe that we are the people, that in my spirit, I don't see in mass movement of Yah to have us go back over there in my estimation of what I'm seeing in the numbers, that some people are being stirred up to fear to say, hey, we all got to get out of here now. You got to get out here now. And we're making moves unwisely. We're going over there, and especially those that believe that we are the people, and we'll go over there and do and say things that might get you in trouble, might get you kicked out of some of these countries, and worse, could get you hurt, or worse than that. Think about this situation that's going on in the DRC. Think about that. You got this thing that's going on with Kagame, Tshisekedi, I think that's his name, the president of Congo. Then you got Burundi and all these other nations that's involved in it, Uganda, all this, that's into that thing with the M23, which is the Tutsis. You had the stuff that went on in Rwanda, in the which actually it started back during colonialism with the Tutsis and the Hutus, right? Now, this is my understanding, and you go back and you research it for yourself. My understanding is that the Tutsis were a Cushitic, somewhat Nilotic people that have also traces of Bantu in them, but that the Hutus are Bantu also, but that because they kind of over hundreds of years have kind of mixed in with the Tutsis, but that there is still a stark um, difference in a lot of ways between the Tutsis and the Hutus, where the Tutsis are, as they used to be called, the Watutsi people are tall, right? The average height of men is like 6'7". The average height of some of the women can be up to 6'4". All these kind of things, but that there was intermarriage, but for the most part, you can look at the Tutsis and then you look at some of the Hutus, except for those that have intermingled. But you can kind of look at Kagame, and then you can kind of look at some of the Hutus, and what you will find that the Hutus were part of the Bantu expansion. So that's just use our deductive reasoning, because we do believe that not all the Bantu people, but that a majority of what we call the Bantu expansion was actually the descendants of the 12 tribes. Somewhere in the line, not all Bantus, but in the Bantu expansion, there was that element of them that was of the 12 tribes in particular, maybe the kingdoms, northern kingdom tribes, but that there was always a knowledge that Tutsis, hey, we are Hamitic people, because Cush and Nilotic deals with Egyptian original Egyptians were dark people. Look at the statue of, I think it's Pharaoh Chawat or whatever his name is, dark individuals. What we used to call blue black. But that they knew, but that because of a little intermingling and everything like that, the lines kind of got blurred. But that, looking at my study, they said that most of the paternal lineage in the Tutsis was E1B1B, which is not what we are. We're E1B1A on the paternal, because it goes looking at the father, that they know, hey, we might be intermingling with some of these people, but we know that they're not. That's why when the Europeans came in, they said that the Europeans, when they was colonizing, say, hey, you Tutsis, y'all closer to us. We believe y'all closer to us. We're going to put you in charge of the Hutus. And we know that there was some oppression. But then after colonialism, and they gave some of these nations in Central Africa and in East Africa their freedom, there started to be a clash between the Hutus and the Tutsis, almost like, okay, now that while the colonizer here, we worked together, we mingled together, or whatever, because we had a common enemy. But now that they're gone, we want our own self-determination as Hutus and as Tutsis. And that even starting as far back as the 1950s, there were ethnic clashes back then, and then you had different clashes in the 70s, and then it all led up to when the Hutus, massacred the Tutsis. But it wasn't like the Tutsis had not at one time massacred the Hutus. So it's been going back and forth. So that's to say, you as a Black American that know that you are the people, and you going over there to DRC, or you going over there to Burundi and all these different places, and I just say you coming over there saying, I'm a Babantu of the people of the book and all this stuff, and they say, okay, so you kind of related to the Hutus. Okay, so when whatever this is going to kick off in the Central Africa, that you don't think that they're going to look at you as you saying these things, or even if you're not, but that they know who's who. They know who's who. That's why they fighting each other. As the Japhetic nations possessed the tents of Shem, don't you know they drove everybody out? They drove out the Shemitic people that was in those lands. They drove out the Canaanite people, which was of Ham. They drove all of them out. They drove all of them into Africa, and there was an intermingling. Not all of us kept ourselves separate, right? As we went in, some of us had, there was intermingling. Now, it was part of us that did somewhat keep our bloodlines pure, but there was intermingling. But trust you me, that a lot of the places that our ancestors went into, they knew they were different than them. Not, because again, we know that at one time everybody on this planet was black people at one time. We got other videos on that. We're not going to get into that, but that just because you're the same complexion to me does not mean ethnically that you are the same as me, and culture. And so some of these nations, you can see that with the ethnicity, but also dealing with the religion. If you go into some of these nations as a believer in Yeshua, right? Especially with the understanding that we are the people, that some of the customs and stuff of those people is not going to be in line with what you're doing. That's why it's already been reported that in Ghana, that some of the African Americans that have got together there have this, and I don't know, I haven't verified it for sure. I just seen a thumbnail of it, are trying to build their own city that's more compatible to them, because, hey, they're not compatible with that. So we must be aware of that. We must be aware, especially if these nations have had difficulties with quote unquote African American Hebrew people in the past. You think they're gonna say, hey, we ain't gonna judge him or her on where they're coming from and what their ethnic group is? No, they are. And when they see you coming, they're gonna immediately put the blinkers up and say, hey, that's why I ask you to take caution as you go over to these nations, even though they look like you, they sound like you, they're not who you are. Now, if push comes to shove, where the Most High makes it obvious that we gonna have to get out of here, I believe this is what me, Brother Lyles believe. I believe he's gonna make a way for us to get out of this nation, because we know ultimately this nation is gonna be destroyed anyway. I'm more believing that it's gonna have to be a desperation scenario that's gonna pull us up out of here, and that when it happens, when we get out of here, it's gonna be swift, it's gonna be quick, and wherever we land up and land at, it might not at the beginning be the continent of Africa, but I believe we're gonna slowly be moved into that direction. And I believe it's that time that the Most High Himself will make enclaves for us on the continent. But if we try to go there now and make enclaves and all that kind of stuff for ourselves, it's not gonna work, because whatever success that those nations going through right now, they ain't trying to be sharing it with you, unless somehow you are of their direct diaspora, meaning when Ethiopia was having all those civil wars and they had a lot of Ethiopians that, got adopted or whatever, or they fled to come to the West, right? And now they're going back. They're going to know, they're going to see them, unless they, in between that time, they mix themselves out by intermingling in the nations they went. But if they kept their ethnic look, their whatever, they can go back and they're going to receive. But you as AA, one that claims himself as a Hebrew or just claim yourself as an AA, you're gonna you unless you have tremendous amounts of money like some of these movie stars, black movie stars that can go over there and do that. And even then, they're probably not gonna fully maintain a full-time. They're gonna be more like investments. But other than that, you are not. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for you to go. It's gonna be, in my estimation, the same way when Moshe, when he ran away from Egypt, from Pharaoh, and he ended up in the Sinai Peninsula with the Midianites. And he was with Jethro. He got his daughter and had children and all these different things. But you can see the difficulty in that relationship that he had with Zipporah when Yah called him to go back to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let the people go, and that he had not circumcised by the laws of Abraham, because Abraham said, hey, look, this is a covenant that we have, that your offspring has to be circumcised. Moses was circumcised because first 5 years, he was being weaned. He didn't go back. He didn't go to Pharaoh's daughter until after his Hebrew mother, who pretended to be a wet nurse for Pharaoh's daughter, until we know that he was circumcised and all that stuff on the 8th day. We know he did. That's why when she looked at Moses, not just because of the color of his skin, but when she looked down on his private area and she seen that, hey, he's circumcised. This is one of the Hebrew babies, right? But that when he went to stay with the Midianites, he didn't do that to his sons. That's why when he was on his way back, the Bible said, Yah sought to kill him. Why? Because his children hadn't been circumcised according to the promise of Yah. But Zipporah, when she took the flint rock and circumcised her 2 sons and threw this foreskin at the foot of Moses and say, you die for a bloody man because of the circumcision, because there probably was some areas in their relationship that was not compatible, and that she probably was not looking forward to going into Egypt amongst Moses' descendants, even though they probably, Midianites were dark people too, and had somewhat similar customs to the Hebrews, somewhat, because they were descendants of Abraham too. It was an inner mixture. It was one of his children, Madai, from which the Midianites came, but there was friction there. There's friction. And so it would be the same way with us. Now, there's some people, our people can go over there and they can just mail right in or whatever. No problem. I'm not saying this is not whatever, but you can even see it with what's going on in Sierra Leone. My wife's DNA tied back to Sierra Leone and through African ancestry, and I would tell everybody to use African ancestry. We've used it before, where they was telling people, if you wanted your citizenship, I think it started out as $600 for the citizenship for African Americans or anybody from any place, but we're just talking about African Americans that could go back there. Then I think they said they raised it up to 10,000. I think, or is that Liberia? I can't remember. It might have been Liberia that did 10,000. But Sierra Leone had last year, I think they had raised it up to 100,000, because what was happening was they were saying that it was people coming over there and it was getting their citizenship, but they was not coming back and investing in the country. They was not making business investments. Now, some African Americans might have felt that, hey, we were caught up in the slave trade. We was not we was not sent to America because we were wanting to go. We were forcibly taken away from the land. Therefore, why do we have to pay back? They're saying, well, we're poor people. We haven't benefited, or at least the rank and file African nation, the regular people have not benefited from what happened with the slave trade. Was the families, the chiefs, and all that more benefited from that. And so now the leaders of these nations are saying our rank and file people are not benefiting. So how can we let you come in and give you all the, well, I'm gonna say give you all of this, but give you this citizenship like this for little or nothing, even if at one time maybe some of your land and the property of your ancestors was taken after you were sold into slavery. So you got that back and forth going. It hasn't been settled. That's why I believe in Isaiah 11th chapter. I believe in that, where it's saying that, and let's go there. Let's go to Isaiah 11th chapter, and we're gonna go with Isaiah 11, and it says here, 11 and 10, it said, and in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that the master will set his hand again, the second time, to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Yasharel, and shall gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. Now, when people think about it, they think about the whole continent of Africa. But remember, we are still scattered. So that in those African nations over there on the continent, within those nations, you have a scattering of our people. We're never going to be the majority of anything. It's talking about the scatterings amongst those nations, that when Yah brings us here in the West back over there, where however way it's going to be, we're going to connect with that scattering of people within it, not with the whole nation. We're not going to reconnect with that whole nation as a people within us. Now understand that during colonialism, some of those nations that were being colonized, and when they civil wars broke out, a lot of those people, they had a diaspora that left out also to get away from the war or get away from colonialism. Now, when they come back, it's going to be a different story, because they're coming back to maybe parts of Nigeria or wherever, where people know their family, but we was cut off when we went over. But those of us that are of the tribes, they're sprinkled amongst those. Some of them are waking up to who we are, but not all of them are that. Not all of them are that. But the sprinkling of the people that's on the continent that is of the 12 tribes, that's who we're going to reconnect with. But they're not the ones that's running these nations. They are a small, maybe, group within that nation, and they don't really have a voice. But when we come over, when y'all, however that's going to be, we're going to connect with those people right there. But it seems like there might be some friction in there, because if you look at verse 14 of Isaiah 11, said, but they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines toward the west, and they shall spoil them of the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. And the master shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea, and with his mighty hand wind shall he shake his hand over the river, and shall smite it in the 7 streams, and make men go over dry shod. And there shall be a highway from the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, like as it was to Israel in the day that he came up out of the land of Egypt. So it's saying that there's going to be somewhat of a little skirmish, a battle or whatever amongst the places that we go, where we're going to probably have to literally come and bind ourselves together as we move back toward the land. Now, are we going to get into the land before Yeshua comes back or at his second coming? As more and more I look at what's going on, I believe that we're going to get into the land at Yeshua's second coming. I don't believe that we're going to get into the land before that. I don't believe that until after Yeshua destroys the world's armies at Armageddon. I don't believe that we're going to be able as a group. But what I do believe is he's gonna start moving us back closer. Does that mean that everybody here in America or in the West is going? I don't think so, but I believe it's going to be a lot but I believe it's going to be some kind of situation that's going to happen. Because it said an ensign is a person that speaks. So something's going to happen where our people, and you kind of hear rumblings of it with people saying, hey, we need to go back. But I don't believe that it is that call yet, but it is a precursor to it. But one day something's going to happen where something's going to be where we're going to say, hey, look, we need an entrance back into the continent. We know we ain't the same people. We know we can't claim that we're going to come back to Burkina Faso or any of these other African nations and claim this, that, and another. We ain't saying that. We saying we trying to get away from the West, either because America is destroyed or going to be in the process of being destroyed, and we just need an entrance back in. I believe it's going to be more akin to that. But that we going to come, but we going to know, and they're going to know, hey, y'all ain't the same people. For whatever reason, y'all will be here, but I'm believing that Most High Yah is going to move us closer and closer and closer and closer to wherever it is that we need to be right before Yeshua comes back the second time. And then when he come back the second time, it's kind of gonna be like, hey, we're gonna be, moving right into that area. However it's gonna be, I don't believe that it's gonna still be majority of us in the Caribbeans, in America, and Central America, South America. I believe the remnant of whoever the tribes is left after all these different things, we're gonna start moving. And also we see what's going on in America right now with Trump sending back a lot of African diaspora, the ones I told you that left out because their countries was having civil war because of colonialism, how he's now forcing these people, he's putting them on planes. And then so what some people are saying is, eventually Trump going to get around to forcibly making African American people go back because he's going to revoke birthright citizenship or whatever, which came after slavery, when they say, okay, well, we got to tie these black people to become Americans by making sure that their children that are born can be considered to be, and how nations afterward that came over that might have married an American citizen tried to use that same thing, but that they believe they're going to revoke it, and then that it is great. It's very possible that that could happen. I don't necessarily believe that's going to happen now, but it could happen. I don't know, but something's going to happen where we're going to be like, hey, what? Look out! Look out! Look out! We coming back over. Make. Can you make a way in different places? That's what I believe. But I think again, it's president on us understanding. Don't get it and twisted when you go into Tanzania, when you go in and when you say, "Come back, my people, come back." That you might say that in yourself, but when you get there, you'll understand. Hey, I'm not clicking in with what's going on here, because first of all, even if we was not the people, even some of the African diaspora, those that left out that still had family in Africa, but they've been away for so long, a lot of them are having problems adjusting to being. Think about those people they said left from Haiti in 2011 during the great earthquake, and they fled the island. They couldn't get America to take them in, so a lot of them went into South America, and then they worked their way through South America into Central America up into Mexico till they got to the border. They said some of them, it took them years to get there, and so some of them had children in these different Latin American, Central American nations. They themselves learned Spanish. I see some of them here where I live at. Africa, you go into some of these Mexican grocery stores, because they got quite a few here, and you'll see them in there, and you'll be thinking they're black Mexican, but no, they're not a black Mexican, they're African. But some of them were either born in Mexico and learned the language, but they're of African descent, or they were ones that fled Haiti or fled Africa or whatever, and they came in and they stopped in Mexico and they couldn't get in America, and they learned the language and they learned some of the customs, and you'll hear them talking and you be like, man, they pretty good, you know? So we have to think about that as these things. And even if you go over there and you say, well, the nation that I would like to go to, they speak English mostly, and they're quote unquote Christian. But you gotta find out what kind of quote unquote Christian that they are, because a lot of them are either Catholic or they're heavily influenced by Protestantism, like Adventism, or these word faith. And when I'm talking about they are like into it way more than us. And you're gonna probably say, man, I left America to get away from that, and now I'm going into that. So you will be in a kind of a culture shock, right, when you see that. And so this is all, again, just to bring awareness to you as you we see this great push for all of us to just up and leave. I believe that the Most High Yah will let us know. He will make us aware of when it is time as a whole to get up out here, because there's so many factors that's going into it. People's age, their financial situation, all of that, their understanding and their ability to even be able to make the mental move there, where some will get there and they just will never be able to whatever. So I don't believe that the Most High Yah is gonna use a what they call a butcher's knife. You know, when you eating a steak, you use a steak knife to cut it. You're not gonna use the big butcher's knife, that big thing. I'm finna eat the steak and take and just smash it on the steak, and you be cutting the steak in half and cutting the plate in half. No, you're gonna use a steak knife cut that state into whatever pieces. But with this method that is being used upon us with fair, that's trying to use that big old butcher's knife that's gonna meat cleaver. That's what it's called to do that, and that's not the way the Most High Yah. Everything that He is gonna do as far as us, as the Hebrew people, descendants of Jacob, when we go over to the continent in whatever phase, because it could be phased in how we get out of here, especially if America comes under attack and is systematically being destroyed, and there's no flights or sailing out because, it can be surrounded. We might have to, in phases, get out of here, and we just don't know how that's going to work out. But I'm just again giving you this. We can be happy for what is going on the African continent, but ultimately, if we get over there, and unless you pretend to be of the people that's already there, it's gonna be hard for you to compete. I'll give a perfect example, and then we get ready to end this lesson, if you want to call it that. Think about the stuff that's going on in South Africa, where now they're trying to finally start giving the land back to the original people, the blacks, the South African people, blacks that were there over the white people that own, even though they're only like a 8% or whatever of the population. They own over 70% of the land. They're finally trying to return it back, through the Constitution or whatever. Do not think that you as a black person, right, you're gonna run down there. And these people have been waiting since apartheid, right, to get their land, and you're gonna be trying to come in there and be part of no. And if you do, you better be careful, because again, it goes back to the heirs. If that just say that a particular family member said, "Oh yeah, I got this land from the white people, but I can't really do anything with it. I'm going to lease it or sell it or whatever to you," but everybody within his family was not in agreement. Somebody just come out of the clear blue and say, "I was not in agreement with them selling that land to you as a African American, as a Hebrew. I want that land back." And we seen this this was a couple years ago in Gambia where this happened. It wasn't an African American person. I think it was a person from Britain, a black Britain person. And I don't know if they had been a descendant of somebody that had came from Gambia, but apparently they had bought a part of land, right? They had built it up. What was the lady name? I can't think of her name. She used to be out there a lot, but she showed how this person, they had came over there and they had this big house, they had built all of that. And the person that they had quote unquote bought the land from, they had a family member that came out of nowhere and said, "I was not part of the negotiations for the land being sold to this person. I want the land back." And they went to the Gambian government, and the Gambian government was like, "Yeah, give it back to them." And that person had to vacate their house, the land, everything, because they said that all parties in that family had not been there. And rightfully so. They said, hey, if it was true, they like, nah, I wouldn't have been in agreement with them selling that land to them. I want it, and they got it back. Then now they said the person went to court, but ultimately, unless they probably pay an enormous sum again, which I doubt, still they could be sure that they would get it back. That all that investment and stuff that they put in there is gone. So this is why I said when it happens, however it's going to happen, that Most High Yah going to get us over there to the continent. He's going to make a way amongst those that are of Ishmael or Edom, like the Fulani, who they apparently a lot of people have problems that they seem to have a connection with Edom, Esau going into Egypt in a mixture of Egyptians and Edomites. Just like in Ishmael, we know that Ishmael, his mother, got him an Egyptian wife, and you can see that all throughout West Africa, where a lot of those tribes all trace themselves back to Egypt, right? So there's, like I said, Canaanite and other Shemitic people that were not of Jacob, that I think is the majority on the continent, not us. Those of Jacob are just sprinkled amongst them, and these people know, but we must be aware that as things start heating up here in the states, but don't move out of fear, because if you do and you end up, then you really can't call on the protections of the Most High Yah, because you moved in fear. So we want to thank you for tuning in today. We want to again ask you to pray my strength in the Most High Yah. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment. Be blessed.